there's a growing number of people, hedge fund managers and the like, people with large amounts of money that are recognizing the dollar's days are numbered. And they are buying the physical metals.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with the Miles Franklin Market Update. And back with us today is Jay Taylor from the radio show Turning Hard Times into Good Times. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Elijah.
Definitely. It's great to have you. And I'd like to first discuss the economy because, we can sometimes get caught up in all the market movements and all the price changes in gold and silver. Do you want to kind of give us a macro view of where the economy is right now and where you think we're headed?
Yeah, where we're headed, that's of great concern to me, because I think if we really looked at it, where we are now, I think we would use the D word. I think we're in a depression. When you look at the massive amounts of unemployment still, underemployment, people that have dropped out of the workforce, we have to have these massive transfer payments, the likes of which we haven't seen since the 1930s. Trillions of dollars created out of nothing and sent to people that are unemployed to pay the rents, to put food on the table. We have long food lines, too, in the country. We're seeing that like we haven't seen since the 1930s. I think there's a lot of despondency, a lot of depression. We're seeing drug addiction in many parts of the country, especially the Midwest and places, the poorer states. And the problem is, it's a longer term problem. You're right. We see things, we get down in the weeds day to day, and, interest rates go up or they go down, or gold goes up or goes down or whatever. But the bigger picture, I think, is one in which a Keynesian economic system has basically and slowly bled us to death, in the sense that we don't save money anymore. We're not a nation. The U.S. is certainly not a nation of savings. We are a nation of dissavings when you figure in the amount of debt that the government is going into. Net, we are net dissavers. And we are having trouble now at the same time that we have massive amounts of new debt the government is taking on to try to transfer money to the masses of people. The financing of that debt is harder to come by because of fictitiously low interest rates. And I think with respect to the currency, the dollar, because we have to create so many dollars to pay for this deficit that we used to be able to rely on foreigners to give us, I think means that the dollar is going to be in some severe trouble. I mean, Stephen Roach, no less, is suggesting that the dollar is in big trouble. And I think ultimately what we may very well see is some sort of a reversion to fiat money. Probably is here to stay, but maybe backed by or a substitute for gold and or silver. And I don't think that's what the politicians want, but the people that are enjoying this counterfeit money creation really want. But I think that the laws of nature will likely force it on people, just on the systems, on the governments around the world. And of course, there are those governments that are really have been building their gold supplies, like China, like Russia, some of the others too. I think recognizing that the dollar's days may very well be numbered. So there will be a reset at some point, Elijah, and I suspect then we will rebuild and things will revert to something more positive than what we're seeing now. But I really, as an old guy who's lived around, 1971, August 15th, I'll never forget the day when I read in the New York Times about Mr. Nixon's temporary cessation of gold as behind the dollar, that was a key point in our history, a very, very key point, because that then allowed our government and our people to live beyond our means, and has, I think, put us in the position that we're in right now.
And in that position, definitely hard times, as you mentioned, and difficult times. How do we turn those into good times, as the title of your radio show is?
Yeah, we're trying to turn hard times into good times. That's the goal. I mean, if we're so masochistic that all we want to do is harp on the difficult times, that's not healthy. Well, for sure. Again, I mean, I think individuals have to look have to take care of their own personal finances, stay out of debt, uh, and really recognize that paper money is headed for the dustbin of history. It's always been the case that fiat money self-destructs eventually. And I think we're seeing that process globally, but with the world's reserve currency perhaps leading the way in that regard. So what we have to do is then trade those units of currency for real things, starting with gold and silver because they're the most portable measures of transferable wealth. You can transfer it. But I think also agriculture, if you have food supplies, if you have some land, you can grow crops on, just tangible things, buying and investing in things that will retain value. I mean, I think the mining shares, which I'm focused on so much, tremendous opportunity. It was the 1930s when the gold mining companies were just stellar cash providers. Homestake mining went up eightfold or something like that when the Dow Jones lost 90% of its value in the 1930s. Paid huge dividends. I think we're seeing that play out again. I've never seen a time, and I've been writing my newsletter since 1981, I've never seen a time that I've been more optimistic about exploration and development of gold and silver projects. And the capital is available because there are a lot of people that are recognizing, there's a growing number of people, hedge fund managers and the like, people with large amounts of money that are recognizing the dollar's days are numbered. And they are buying the physical metals. And they are storing the physical metals, which is why, as we discussed recently on our panel discussion, you can't get the metal. People aren't letting it go because they recognize the dollar's days are numbered. So I think that from a financial point of view, you need to trade currency for tangibles, starting with the monetary metals, and then investing in companies that will be producing the things that are life-sustaining and required by society. And then, of course, I think also, though, there is more than just the material. There is also the moral and the spiritual aspects of our lives that I think we need to really pay attention to that. I think you need to really seriously love your neighbors, know them, and build a community of people that you can trust and work with and help and support, because we're all going to have our needs if things really, continue in the direction that I think they might. I pray and hope they won't, but that's what I can see. And I think that aspect of faith in God is helpful to me personally. I think it is to you, Elijah. I think that is one thing that those of us who can believe, I think that's helpful psychologically, spiritually, and also gives us strength to share and help others. So those are, I think, how we turn things into good times. Good times are not necessarily times when everything is going so well. Sometimes good times are when we just simply love each other and take care of each other. Now, it helps to have food on the table, electricity and the comforts of life, for sure.
I think those are really good points you just said, because at the end of the day, all we can do is really control what we can control, right? And, we do need to have that faith in God. At the same time, God wants us to use our brain, right? And to look ahead and say, what are some prudent decisions? What can I control? What's coming ahead? And make those prudent decisions. And that's really all we can do. And then we, trust in God. With respect to, the things that we can control, you mentioned, investing in hard assets, and then mining companies, the companies that are producing those hard assets, right? What is your perspective on like gold versus silver, and we can't give financial advice, right? But some maybe insights into how do people make those kinds of decisions? What info do they need in order to decide, well, should I invest in gold, or should I invest in silver and platinum, or mining stocks?
Well, as far as gold and silver, I think it's a pretty well established fact that in bull markets, silver usually outperforms gold longer term. It's more volatile, and in bear markets, then silver usually declines more than gold. I don't follow the bullion as much as you do in your work there, probably, but clearly, I think it's good to have both. Silver, being more of an industrial metal, might provide some some protection. I mean, gold was confiscated in the 1930s. Silver is an industrial metal. So you might think in those terms in terms of safety of retaining physical. I'm not saying that gold will be confiscated again. I don't really know. I just know that it was once, and I think governments can do almost anything when they become desperate. So, but in terms of, I think we're in a bull market. We're in a bull market for precious metals simply because paper is destructing. It's not that gold and silver are gaining value. It's that we measure them against paper. Paper is self-destructing right now. So you need to own both. And in terms, I think that I know personally, I'm favoring silver now in some ETFs that I own, as well as, I mean, personally, I have more gold than silver. It's just the way it's worked out. But in my investment now, where I can buy something like, an ETF that I have confidence in, there's some that I don't, but there's one that I do. And there's a gold one that I have confidence in as well. But I'm buying more silver now because I firmly believe that silver will outperform gold on the up. And I think we're going to see, in terms of the dollar, which is an ever-changing yardstick, we're going to see numbers that are hard for people to fathom in terms of gold and silver on the upside here. I don't know exactly the timing. One of my frequent guests is Alistair McLeod, who's convinced that we're very close to a dollar reset or some major changes in the global currency. If that's true, then it's not very far away, I think. But at some point, owning the physical, start with that. Own the physical, both gold and silver. And then from there, maybe investing in some mining shares and other tangibles, I think.
Yeah, kind of the physical is kind of the first step. It's kind of that insurance just to make sure you have something, right? The last question I'd like to ask you is regarding the dollar. So you mentioned how you think the dollar is on a trend downward for the long term. For the short term, it's interesting because we're seeing the dollar rally and people are pointing to that for why precious metals have been falling recently. What is your perspective on that? Why do you think the dollar is rising?
Well, we could have a quote unquote strong dollar if we started to see equity prices and other things start to decline again, which I think is a very real possibility, especially as interest rates are trending up. As I said, the Fed has to print all the money to finance the U.S. government now, essentially. Interest rates they need to go up. They have to go up to finance it, but they're not allowing them to go up, so they're printing more money. But they're sneaking higher, and I think that, the 10-year was 1.3 yesterday, I think. And so I think that could force equities into a tailspin. If inflation continues to rise, that's another reason that interest rates have to go up or should go up if they were allowed to. And that could trigger an equity market decline at some point. I mean, we're in nosebleed territories as far as equities are concerned anyway, and there are only a few big stocks that are really sort of carrying the load right now. So if we see like a 2008 kind of a scenario, it always is the case where the margin clerk must be paid, and people sell not necessarily what they want to sell, but what they're able to sell to pay their debts. And that sometimes hits the metals very hard because there's always a market for gold. There's always a market for silver at some price. And so you could see those metals and that conversely then would make the dollar stronger because people consider the fact that the dollar is the largest shorted currency on earth. So when debtors have to cover their shorts, they have to sell whatever they're able to sell, which is what happened in 2008, 2009. Go buy the currency, buy the dollars to pay back the bank, to pay back the creditors. And that could cause the dollar to get stronger than other currencies. But then what will they do? Maybe there's a reset at some point, and we go to gold and silver, and the currencies are the gold. They represent gold and silver. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say in the short term. But I think, again, get your gold and silver physical as the base of your portfolio and your wealth. You have to start with that. And I guess if you can time these sort of declines in the equity markets, you can come out well and probably go to cash for the short term and then load up on gold and silver and other things, other assets. There will come a time when you're very happy that you have a lot of cash if you have it. I've experienced the opposite of it many times when I haven't had much cash. I wish I had. This time in my old age, I'm trying to make sure that I have some buying power when there's really some great opportunities out there. And they will come. They will come.
All right. Well, Jay Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time. Before we let you go, where can people find you online, and any last thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, Jay Taylor Media, Jay Taylor, Jay Taylor Media. .com. That's my main website. Miningstocks.com is where people can purchase my newsletter. It's a weekly and a monthly letter. And I just want to thank you, Elijah, for what you do and your firm. I think you're providing a very valuable service. I really enjoyed being a part of the panel discussion, listening more than talking. There's some great information that came out of that. And I would certainly suggest to anybody that they should keep track of what you're doing there.
Well, thank you so much, Jay, and we really appreciate what you're doing and giving us your time today.
Thank you so much.